Good evening, I'm Josh Kerr and welcome to this Staff's Live Sports Night. We'll be bringing you action from the Champions League, the Football League and across non-League too. Watching over proceedings here in the studio, we have Jerry Malakabu, who will be keeping up to date with proceedings in Manchester City's second leg tie against Schalke. Molly Hudson will have all of the action from Juventus against Atletico Madrid, and Tom Jackson is keeping us up to date with Bristol City's match against Ipswich Town. Plus, we have a whole host of reporters up and down the country bringing us the latest updates all across the football pyramid. But first, we turn our attention to Manchester City. And Jerry, what did you make of the first half at the Etihad Stadium?
Well, it's the Etihad, so as you know, there's goals. Now got 2 goals against Schalke, but it's been a pretty comfortable half for City, and they're most likely going to go through.
Thank you, Jerry. And of course, a City win would ensure that there will be 3 teams in the last 8 of the competition for the first time since 2011. A City win would also mean that it will be back-to-back quarter-finals for the first time in the club's history. Now, in the other Champions League tie, Juve are looking to overcome a 2-0 deficit against Atletico. So, Molly, how are things going to plan for the Italian Giants so far?
It's been action-packed for time.
Brilliant. And of course, it just had to be him, that man, Ronaldo. Now, when the Champions League tie draw was made, of course, this was arguably the most significant draw, with 4 of the last Champions League finals containing both Juventus and Atletico. And of course, it's all about that man, Ronaldo. The last time he was eliminated at the round of 16, you have to go back all the way to 2010 during his debut season with Real Madrid when he was eliminated by Lyon. Now, in our final studio game, Bristol City are looking to rediscover their winning form against bottom side Ipswich. So, Tom, what has happened so far at Ashton Gate?
Yeah, well, they've made a good start here, Bristol. They're 1-0 up going into the half.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Tom. And of course, for Lee Johnson's sake, it's good that he's winning, because apparently dropping points to bottom of the table Ipswich gets you the sack. Well, it doesn't if you're West Bromwich Albion in that case. Also, Bristol City have won 5 of the last 6 matches against Ipswich, so that is very much a game to look out for. Now we go over to the Bescot Stadium, where Jacob Leeks is at Walsall, where the Saddlers are looking to continue their impressive form against playoff contenders Portsmouth. So, Jacob, how has the first half gone?
Well, it's not going to...
Thank you, Jacob, for that. And, of course, Portsmouth manager Kenny Jackett has a very impressive record against Walsall. He's never actually lost, in fact, to Walsall. He's played 7, won 4 and drawn 3. And the last time he was defeated was, in fact, a 3-0 defeat back in 2007. We've also got another reporter up across the country. There's another vital clash at the Ricoh Arena, where both Coventry and Fleetwood are looking to push towards a playoff spot. Matty Roper is watching over proceedings there. How are we getting on, Matty?
I'm not sure you'll be able to hear me over the incredibly...
Thank you, Matty. And of course, very important that Coventry put away that 2-1 defeat at home to Burton. The club have never lost back-to-back league games since they lost 3 in a row back in March 2017. Over to League 2 now, and it's a relegation 6-pointer as Port Vale hosts Yeovil Town. Connor Shaw is at Vale Park. And Connor, who has had the best opening exchange of the 2 sides?
Well, you know what, Josh?
Thank you, Connor. And of course, Yeovil have never actually won away at Port Vale in the Football League. They've drawn 2 and lost 3 at their previous 5 attempts. Now, finally, there's another important game in the National League, where Gateshead travel to Solihull, with both sides desperate for 3 points on their charge towards automatic promotion. Phil Shirley has all the details of the first half at Damson Park. How are they getting on, Phil? Thank you, Phil, for that. Obviously, we're going to go back to the Etihad Stadium now, and we're going to focus on Schalke, as the last time Schalke came to Manchester was back in the semi-finals of the Champions League in 2011. Some of the stars they had on show that night, they had the likes of World Cup winners Manuel Neuer, Benedict Haldez and Julian Draxler. They also had Liverpool's Joel Matip, former Netherlands striker Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, and Real Madrid's legendary captain Raul. Jerry, since then, they haven't really had much luck of the fortunes, but how are they getting on tonight, Schalke?
Yeah, it's crazy to think how...
Thank you, Jerry. Now we go back over to Turin, where Molly Hudson will be looking at that game. Now, Juventus haven't won a home knockout match in the Champions League since 2017. Of course, they lost their quarter-final first leg 3-0 to Real Madrid, and before that they drew their last 16 tie with Tottenham. But they are currently leading 1-0. And Molly, do you think they're looking to progress potentially?
On the basis of that first half.
Thank you, Molly. And we're going to go back to Tom Jackson, who is looking over proceedings at Ashton Gate. Now, Bristol City have the third best defensive record in the division. They've only leaked 37 goals so far, and they're against bottom of the table Ipswich Town. Ipswich managed to get an unlikely draw against West Bromwich Albion. So, Tom, is there any chance of them pulling anything back tonight?
Well, if there is, it's all going to be down to Alan Judge. He's really running the park here. Numerous times he's had the ball.
Brilliant, thank you, Tom. And of course, we have other big matches in the Championship tonight. Blackburn Rovers are currently 1-0 up against Wigan Athletic. Paul Cook and the Lactics are currently struggling down at the bottom of the table. Bolton Wanderers are currently trailing Steve Bruce's Sheffield Wednesday. And Reading are 3-0 down to second place Leeds United. Sheffield United are also in a promotion charge, and they are currently leading 1-0 at Brentford. Let's go back to the Bescot Stadium now, where Portsmouth are currently leading Walsall. Jacob, is there anything else to add from you?
Yes, there's been.
Thank you, Jacob. Back down to League Two, where the biggest match of the night is between Port Vale and Yeovil Town, both in a relegation dogfight. Only a point before the night separated the two teams. If Port Vale can win, they will move 10 points clear of the drop. So, Connor, is there anything to add from Vale Park at all? Thank you, Connor. Back to the Etihad Stadium now. Let's look at Manchester City. Obviously, the best they've ever done in the competition was back in 2016 when they made the semi-finals of the competition with Manuel Pellegrini. They were knocked out by 13 times holders Real Madrid. Now, Jerry, do you believe this City side are better equipped to potentially go all the way this season?
Definitely, although...
Now, let's go back to Turin, where obviously Juventus are currently leading Atletico Madrid by 1-0. Now, Diego Simeone has never lost a knockout tie to an opponent other than Real Madrid. So surely, Molly, that's just going to tell us that they're going to go all the way this year and finally win it.
I think they must have been absolutely delighted with the result at Ajax when Ajax beat.
Thank you, Molly. Such a big match for both of these teams. They've recently established themselves as the bridesmaids of the competition rather than the bride. Of course, Juventus have been in 9 European Cup finals, winning 2 but losing 7. Meanwhile, Atletico Madrid have been in 3 European finals and have lost each and every one of them. Let's go back now to Ashton Gate, where Tom Jackson has all the updates. Now, Ipswich are yet to win a single championship match this season when Bartosz Białowski was in goal. They've played 20 and they've got no wins, 8 draws and 12 defeats. Tom, does it look like he's going to carry on that shocking trend so far?
Well, he's actually been their saviour in the second half. He's made 2 decent saves.
Brilliant. And obviously we've got some Scottish Cup action so far. Stephen Gerrard's Rangers are currently trailing Aberdeen by 1-0. Aberdeen obviously held Celtic to a 0-0 draw at the weekend, and the former Liverpool and England international recently ruled out Rangers' chance of winning the league, saying that they were out of the title race when they were held to a 1-1 stalemate on Friday. So obviously all attention will turn to that crucial game. Hopefully they can potentially turn it around. Now, Jerry, coming back to you at the Etihad Stadium, coming back to you at the Etihad Stadium, are there any updates at all from you there?
We're just awaiting kickoff.
Thank you, Jane. Of course, we've seen already 2 teams overcome first leg home defeats. We had Ajax, who lost the first leg 2-1 to Real Madrid. They came back to win 4-1 at the Bernabeu. And of course, we all remember when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United lost the first leg at Old Trafford 2-0, but went to the Parc des Princes and they won 3-1, of course, of that Rashford last-minute penalty. So we've had 2 upsets so far, but if Schalke were to go through, it would arguably be the biggest of them all. Can you see that happening at all?
Definitely not. For a side that are 14th in the Bundesliga, like I said.
Thank you, Jerry. Let's go back to the Bescot Stadium, where Walsall are currently trailing Portsmouth by 1-0. Jacob, the second half is underway. Are there any updates for us?
No.
Thank you, Jacob. And obviously we're hearing a few good chances over at the Rico. Matty, what's the latest over there?
Well, Josh, I was about...
Thank you, Matty. Now, over at Vale Park, of course, Darren Way and Yeovil Town, the former player made over 274 appearances with the club, and of course they are now rooted down to the bottom towards the bottom of League Two. They currently are 6 points above the drop, but with Macclesfield's game being, of course, called off tonight, it gives them a chance to close the gap to 3. Now, Connor, we're hearing some action down at Vale Park. What's the latest? Thank you, Connor. And of course, we have that massive game down at the National League. Wrexham are currently trailing, so this gives Solihull the perfect opportunity to leapfrog them in second. Phil, what's the latest over there? Thank you, Phil. Now, of course, we spoke of the importance of that game at Port Vale. Both teams very much in it down at the bottom, and we can confirm there's been a goal down at Vale Park. Connor, who's got it?
What goal. That was an real strike there. Tomlin.
Sorry about that. We've experienced some technical difficulties down at Vale Park. When we get the latest from Connor, we will take you back there. Now, let's go back over to the sofa, of course, the Etihad Stadium, where currently Manchester City lead by 3-0. Jerry, the second half's underway. What's the latest over there? Thank you, Jerry. Now, over at the Bescott Stadium, Jacob will be bringing us the latest action. There's been a big chance down there. Jacob, what's just happened?
Portsmouth have nearly made it 3-0.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jacob. Now, of course, Atletico Madrid have a shocking away record in the competition. They've won just one of their last 8 away matches in the Champions League. And, of course, they initially had that 2-0 lead, but it appears may have surrendered it. Molly, what has happened?
And guess who it is? It's Cristiano Ronaldo once again. And
Brilliant. What a game we have over there. We'll be keeping you very much up to date with that. Now, we heard from Connor earlier there was a goal. There appears to be another goal down at Vale Park. Connor, what has happened?
And what a strike it is as well. What an effort. It's Tom.
Brilliant. And of course, John Askey got his first win since his appointment in January with that 2-1 win over 4th place Mansfield. So he has very much taken them well and truly clear of the bottom 2. Now, let's go back over to Ashton Gate and back to Tom Jackson, who is overseeing proceedings between Bristol City and Ipswich Town. Now, Tom, Ipswich are currently the only Championship side yet to keep a clean sheet this season. Already they haven't again. What's the latest over there?
Yeah, well, Bristol City should have had a penalty, really.
Brilliant. And, of course, Bristol City won the reverse fixture 3-2 back in November, so they're very much on track to do the double over Ipswich. Now, there's been another goal down at Rangers with Steven Gerrard, and Aberdeen are now 2-0 up, so currently Rangers are on the brink of elimination from the Scottish Cup. It will mean, arguably, they are not going to get a trophy this season, considering they are trailing Celtic by quite a distance. So back to you, Jerry, over at the Etihad Stadium, where it was 3-0. Are we going to likely see a fourth anytime soon?
Now Sane's through. He's rounded the keeper. Sane makes it 4.
So, Tom, there is a goal at Ashton Gate. Who's got it?
Yeah, well, it's Ipswich. They are level. And it's brilliant football from Ipswich down the left-hand side. And it's a crossing. I'm not too sure who actually got the cross initially, but it's Kelly. It's actually Lloyd Kelly, the Bristol City player, who's put it into the back of his own net. I'm just looking at the replay here. It's Alan Judge who's whipped it across, and Kelly's got no other choice but to try and get it rid, and unfortunately he's put it in the back of his net.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Tom. And, of course, a Bristol City win would ensure they would leapfrog Derby back into the playoff positions, but it's not going to plan so far. And we are hearing updates of a goal at the Bescott Stadium where Walsall were trailing Portsmouth. Jacob, what's the latest?
And this game, really, you'd have to say, is out of sight now for Walsall.
Thank you, Jacob. Massive result so far for Kenny Jackett, who's looking to inspire another League One promotion. He got the promotion done back when he was with Wolves in 2014, winning the league with them. Now we've heard there's a chance down at the Ricoh Arena between Coventry. Matty Roper, what's the latest?
Yes, Josh, 65 minutes played here. It's still 2-1 to Coventry. It could have been...
Brilliant. Thank you, Matty. Now let's go back to the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City were, of course, winning 3-0. They just had a goal ruled out, but Jerry, there appears to be another. Who's got this one?
Oh, I'm not sure if it is, actually. This one's going to go down to VAR again. So
Thank you, Jerry. Now, of course, we've had our fair share of VAR drama in the Champions League. Of course, that crucial Juventus-Atletico Madrid tie had its fair share in the first leg. Diego Costa had a penalty that was later brought back for a free kick. And, of course, Alvaro Morata had a goal disallowed. So, once again, we are seeing further VAR controversy. Now, let's go back down to Solihull, where there appears to be a disallowed goal. What's happened, Phil? Thank you, Phil. Now, of course, let's go back to that crucial Champions League game between Juventus and Atletico Madrid. Molly, what's the latest?
Diego Simeone must be wondering what he's done to Cristiano Ronaldo in a previous life to be so unlucky. Obviously, he's been on the bad end of plenty of results when Ronaldo was at Real Madrid. And here we are again. He's been the difference for Juventus. He's seen enough. He's brought a substitution on, but it's not making much difference at the moment. Juventus are in control, and if anybody's going to get a goal, it looks like it will be them.
Thank you, Molly. Now, Atletico Madrid surely must be sick of the sight of that man, Ronaldo. Now, there's been a big chance at the Bescott Stadium where we've got Jacob Leeks overseeing proceedings. Jacob, what is the latest there?
Well, pause the...
Thank you, Jacob. Now let's go back down to League Two, where that crucial bottom of the table clash between Port Vale and Yeovil. Connor Shaw, what's the latest there?
And Josh, if you keep me updated with that Wrexham score, I'll be very happy.
Of course, Connor, I'll keep you up to date with Wrexham. We all know you love the club to bits. Now, there has been another goal at the Bescott Stadium. Portsmouth were leading Walsall by 3-0. Jacob, who has got the fourth?
Well, Walsall have pulled a goal back here. They got...
Thank you, Jacob. Now, of course, Walsall had won previously their last 2 home matches, so the crowd are very much going to be getting on their side, hoping for a historic comeback. Now, let's go back to that all-important game in Turin, Molly. Ronaldo last scored a hat-trick in the Champions League in the semi-finals back in 2017. Guess who it was against? Of course, it was Atletico Madrid. Molly, does he look like he could potentially be getting another one against his old rivals?
Well, he's just
Brilliant.
had a half.
Thank you, Molly. And of course, last season, Juventus were in a very similar position when they were leading Real Madrid 3-0 at the Bernabeu. And of course, it was Ronaldo who scored a last-minute goal to decide that tie. Do you think that Juventus have this under control, or do you think it could slip from their fingers similarly to how it did last season?
I think...
Thank you, Molly. Now, of course, Walsall have recently got a goal back, and there's been another big penalty shout down at the Bescott Stadium. Jacob Leeks, what's the latest? Thank you, Jacob. Now, we've had some more goals throughout the Football League. Bolton are now trailing Sheffield Wednesday by 2-0. Since Steve Bruce was appointed back in February, he hasn't lost a game, and he looks like he won't be losing this one. Doncaster Rovers have just equalised against Blackpool, and MK Dons have a second. They were trailing Morecambe by 3-0. It's now 3-2. MK Dons, of course, are the most informed team down in League One. They're searching for a promotion place. And Halifax Town have now levelled against Barnet. And Sutton United are also trailing Braintree by 2-0. Sam Kelly with the second, who looks to have wrapped up the win down in the National League. Now, Jerry, let's go back down to you at the Etihad Stadium. Of course, Manchester City won the league at a canter last season with a record-breaking 100 points tally. This season, yet again, they are leading at the top of the league, this time by a mere point. And of course, the Champions League has been the prize that Pep Guardiola wants more than any other. Since he left Barcelona, he hasn't got close to the final since 2011. But do you think, Jerry, he is more than equipped, or perhaps even City, with all the teams going out, the likes of PSG, Real Madrid, would you say that Manchester City right now are the favourites to win the competition?
I think this is the best time for City to win it. I think
Thank you, Jerry. And of course, Pep Guardiola will be aiming for that record-breaking quadruple. He already secured the Carabao Cup with a penalty shootout win over Chelsea. They are still in the FA Cup with a quarter-final against Swansea at the weekend. They look like to be plain sailing through in the Champions League, and they will also be looking to become the first team to retain the Premier League since Manchester United and none other than Sir Alex Ferguson in 2009. Now, let's go back over to Turin, where it is still Juventus 2-0 up. Ronaldo, of course, at the double. Molly, what's the latest there? Thank you, Molly. Now, back to the Championship. Don't worry, Tom, we have not forgot about you over there. Of course, let's focus on Ipswich Town now. And Paul Lambert, who has been in charge since 2018, he's only won 2 matches since he was brought in at Ipswich. But they are currently level with Bristol City by one apiece, sorry. Tom, do they look like they could potentially snatch a winner at Ashton Gate?
Well, I thought that was going to be a possibility, but
Thank you, Tom. Now, there are other Championship games going on as we speak. Of course, Blackburn Rovers are currently beating Wigan Athletic by 2-0. Danny Graham at the double there. Sheffield United are still leading Brentford by 1-0. And Bolton are still trailing Sheffield Wednesday by 2-0. And of course, Leeds United, who will be looking to go back to the top of the table. They are currently leading Reading by 3-0. Now, let's go back down to League Two now at Port Vale, where, of course, John Askey and his team will be looking to move 10 points clear of danger. Connor, what's the latest down there? Thank you very much, Connor. Now, you'll be pleased to know as well, Wrexham have pulled a goal back against Barrow, so they never know, they could potentially pull a late comeback. Let's go back down to the Bescot Stadium where, of course, Walsall pulled a goal back against Portsmouth. Could there potentially be a comeback, Jacob? Thank you, Jacob. Now, there's been another goal at Colchester. Forest Green are currently 3-0 up. Christian Deutsch has got that one, and with former Bolton Wanderers striker, so with Bolton trailing as well, it just gets better and better for them. Now, let's go back to the sofa now, and Jerry, City are currently leading by 4-0. Now, they've won by more than a 6-goal margin on 6 occasions this season. Could they potentially do it again?
Actually, maybe not.
Thank you, Jerry. Now, let's go back over to Turin, where, of course, Juventus are currently leading Atletico by 2-0. As it stands, that game will go to extra time, with the first leg finishing 2-0 as well. Now, Molly, Atletico opted to start with Morata this time, as opposed to Diego Costa, who was a complete menace in the first half. How has he fared so far tonight?
Well,
thank you, Jerry. Now, let's go back over to Turin, where, of course, Juventus are currently leading Atletico by 2-0. As it stands, that game will go to extra time, with the first leg finishing 2-0 as well. Now, Molly, Atletico opted to start with Morata this time, as opposed to Diego Costa, who was a complete menace in the first half. How has he fared so far tonight?
well, just as you say that, he's just shoved Chiellini to the floor. He's pushed him to the floor. The players are surrounding the referee, but I don't think there's too much in it. It's getting a little bit fiery now, and I think Juventus have brought Dybala on.
Oh, we've got a goal over at the Etihad Stadium, Jerry. City were leading by 4-0. As we said, they could be going for their 7th 6-0 goal margin of the season. Jerry, do we even need to ask who's got it?
It's 5. It's Bernardo.
Thank you, Jerry. Now, John Askey had a terrible start on his return to Port Vale, but he was leading 2-0 against relegation rivals Yeovil Town. And we are hearing there has been not 1, but 2 goals down at Vale Park. Connor, what's the latest?
I think I got
Crucial result there for John Askey, but with Notts County winning, it means they are currently 8 points above the drop, not 10. Of course, Macclesfield's game against Exeter City was called off earlier today due to a waterlogged pitch. Now, let's go over back to Ashton Gate, where the game was very much in the balance between Bristol City and Ipswich. Tom, does there look likely to be a late winner at all down there?
No, it looks like Ipswich are going to draw their last 5 of 6.
Thank you, Tom. Now, let's go over to the biggest Champions League game of the night, and the one that is very much in the balance. It is Juventus 2, Atletico Madrid 0. And, of course, they will be looking for that 3rd goal to take them to the quarterfinals of the competition for the 3rd successive season. Molly, do they look like they could potentially do that?
It's all gone a little bit.
Thank you, Molly. Now, let's go over back down to the Ricoh Arena, where Coventry City were leading Fleetwood Town by 2-1. We're hearing of a couple of chances down there. Matty Roper, what's going on?
Yes, Josh, it does.
Thank you, Matty. And there's been another goal for Blackburn Rovers. Bradley Dack scoring that one. That's now his 15th strike of the season. Now, Jerry, let's come over back to you. And I want to talk about Schalke manager Domenico Testego. As you said, he's one of the youngest managers in Europe. Last season, he guided Schalke to a 2nd-place finish in the Bundesliga. But, of course, this season's been anything but the success of last. It's been very turbulent for them. They're currently 14th in the Bundesliga, and now going out of the Champions League, it's been quite a bit of a disaster for them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Jerry. Now, of course, that crucial game at Ashton Gate, where Lee Johnson will be hoping to guide Bristol City back into the playoff positions, but as it stands, that won't happen because they're being held by bottom of the table Ipswich. Tom, we look like to be going into injury time now. What's the latest over there?
Well, bottom of the table.
Thank you, Tom. Let's go back over to Turin, where, of course, Juventus had lost back-to-back Champions League games. They, of course, lost to Young Boys, and they lost the first leg to Atletico Madrid. Never in their history have they lost 3 consecutive European matches, but they are currently winning by 2-0. Molly, does this game look likely to be settled in extra time, potentially?
It should be.
Thank you, Molly. Now, let's go over to the Bescot Stadium, where, of course, Kenny Jackets Portsmouth are playing. They have the best away record in the division this season, but Walsall are knocking on the door. They've pulled a goal back despite trailing 3-1. Jacob, we've heard there's a half chance down there. What's the latest?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jacob. What a game at the Bescott Stadium. You were treated to a cracker. Now, let's go over to the Etihad Stadium. Jerry, we alluded to the fact that City have scored six or more goals 6 times this season. Have they done it again?
Yes, they have, and it was Phil Foden, who I said would be coming on looking to prove a point.
Third goal for Notts County, so this night just gets bad for worse for Macclesfield. Of course, they didn't even get to kick a ball today. They are now rooted to the bottom of League Two. And, of course, another massive game in the fight for relegation is, of course, Port Vale against Yeovil. The Valiants were leading by 3-0, and it looks like to have finished down there. Connor, what's the latest?
Yeah, it's full time here at Vale Park. Port Vale 3, Yeovil Town 0. First goal.
Thank you, Matty. A massive win for Coventry there. Now, let's go down to the National League, where Solihull were leading Gateshead by 1-1. Of course, they lost that crucial promotion battle earlier this weekend against Salford City, losing 2-0. However, Wrexham are currently trailing 3-1. So if Solihull win, it will mean they will go to second in the table. And it looks like the final whistle has gone down there. Phil, what's the latest? Sorry about that. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, but we can confirm that that has finished. Solihull Moors 1, Gateshead 0. Now, Tom, we alluded to you earlier the fact that it was 1-1 between Bristol City and Ipswich down at Ashton Gate. What is the latest there? Has there been a late winner at all?
No, there hasn't. It has finished Bristol City 1, Ipswich Town 1. It's probably...
Tom, now we have heard another goal down at the Etihad Stadium. It was 6-0 when we last went to Jerry. Jerry, have they got a 7th?
It is 7, and it's a new scorer in Gabriel Jesus.
Thank you, Jerry. Now, let's go back to Matty Roper at Coventry City. Of course, they won 2-1. Let's get his overview of the game. Matty Roper, what was it like for you?
To go.
Thank you, Matty. And of course, we had Phil looking over that Solihull win. We can confirm for you, Connor, that Wrexham have lost, which means Solihull will leapfrog them in the table, moving up to second. Now, the biggest game of the night, we all asked the question, could Juventus do the impossible? Could they pull it back? But it appears that to be a penalty in Turin. Molly Hudson, what is the latest?
It looks...
Absolutely fantastic down in Turin. Atletico Madrid must absolutely hate seeing that man's face. Before tonight, Ronaldo had never been eliminated from the competition against Atletico Madrid, but 2-0 down, you would have thought finally that they would have got the best of the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner. But as it stands, Atletico Madrid will be crashing out of the competition. So we heard before with Phil down in the National League at Solihull, where of course they beat Gateshead by 1-0. Phil, do you want to give us your overview of the match? Thank you, Phil. Now, of course, we were looking over in the Scottish Cup quarter-final where Rangers were trailing Aberdeen by 2-0. We can confirm that match has finished 2-0 to Aberdeen, which means Stephen Gerrard and his team have been eliminated from the Scottish Cup, so it could be a trophyless season for the former Liverpool captain. Now, Molly, lucky for you, there will be no extra time because of that third goal, but surely now Atletico Madrid must be getting every man possible forward.
At the moment...
Thank you, Molly. Now, of course, we all doubted Juventus would do it before, but what do we know about football, eh? They've gone and done it again. Now, of course, we alluded to the fact that Juventus have lost 7 of their last European Cup finals, but surely with a star-studded squad that includes the likes of Ronaldo, Pjanic, defence of Chiellini, Bonucci, you'd think, Molly, that this team are really equipped to potentially go all the way. And could Allegri finally win a Champions League with the Serie A champions? Thank you, Molly. Now, let's go back to the Championship action. Let's talk to Tom. Obviously, that game finished 1-1. What was your overview of the match? For Bristol City, surely it was a chance squandered to go back into the playoff positions.
Yeah, you would have thought at the start of the...
Thank you, Tom. And of course, that's now their 5th draw in their last 6 games. But they've held their own against some of the Championship's best teams. Obviously, they got a 1-1 draw at West Brom. They've also held Derby this season. Do you think potentially that Paul Lambert could be turning a corner, and could we potentially see a late rally for survival at all?
Well,
brilliant. Thank you for that, Tom. And of course, that draw means that Ipswich are now 11 points of safety. So he's got it all to do down there. Obviously, last season he was the man that got relegated with Stoke City, so could history be repeating itself there? But let's go to the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City had a rampant 7-0 victory. They have cruised through to the quarter-finals of the competition for the second successive time. It's the first time in their history that they've made the last 8 in back-to-back seasons. Jerry, you had a very good game to watch. Obviously, 7 goals. What would your overview of the match be? Of course, you fixate onto the fact that they should certainly have a go in this competition. That's a 10-2 aggregate win. Quite a magnificent scoreline. Of course, we've got the likes of Manchester United still in the competition. You've got Ajax, who look a potential dark horse. Juventus look like they could be potentially going through. And, of course, Barcelona still to play tomorrow. But should Manchester City have anything to fear, or should they back themselves now as the favourites to go all the way? And, of course, as you said, you alluded to that man, Phil Foden. He has now played in more European Cup games than Diego Maradona. He's going to be quite a player, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Jerry. And, of course, that emphatic 7-0 win means Pep Guardiola has won both legs of a knockout tie for the first time since his Barcelona days in 2011. He couldn't do it with Bayern Munich. He has done it with Manchester City. Now, of course, we have still got that titanic Champions League clash between Juventus and Atletico Madrid. Juve were leading by 3-0, a hat-trick, the none other, Cristiano Ronaldo. Atletico Madrid have never won the competition. They've lost in 3 finals. They've been eliminated 4 times from the competition at the hands of Ronaldo. Molly, it looks like it could be the 5th time now.
I mean, we've got 30
Thank you, Molly. What an unbelievable turnaround there for Allegri and his side. That means the likes of Manchester United, Ajax, Manchester City, and of course now Juventus will be joining them in the last 8. Before tonight, Diego Simeone had never lost to an Italian opposition. He'd played 7 times, he'd never tasted defeat. But of course, that man again, Cristiano Ronaldo, has come back to haunt him. Molly, it's just, they must be sick of the sight of him, surely.
Well, we talk about that stat, but there was no Ronaldo in Italian teams, and here he is. He's in the Italian team, and he's done.
Brilliant. And of course, Jerry has overseen Manchester City absolutely annihilate Schalke. That was a 10-2 aggregate score. Now, so Jerry, in terms of the Champions League this season, we've seen some unbelievable games. I can think of the turnaround Juventus we've just saw, Manchester United, Ajax. There are some absolutely titanic teams in the competition. Who would you personally back as the favourites right now?
I don't think you can look further than Juventus.
You spoke about Manchester City just then, and obviously today, Liverpool are playing Bayern Munich tomorrow. Mo Salah came out and said today that he would give up his Champions League dream to win the league. That sort of tells the story. Liverpool are purely focused on getting their first league championship in 29 years, but whereas Manchester City now, you'd like to think that they've got 2 eyes purely focused on the Champions League. It's the competition that the club has never won. So
yeah, definitely. I think.
Thank you. And obviously, Tom, you've seen the Championship tonight, but you will have your fair say on Champions League proceedings. Who are you backing this season?
Yeah, I have to go with Manchester City. They're just a different class this year.
Thank you, Tom. And of course, we've still got 2 Champions League matches to play tomorrow, both of them very much in the balance. Bayern Munich 0, Liverpool 0. Who do we see potentially snatching that one? Jerry, who are you going for? Last season when Barcelona were eliminated to Roma when they came back from 4-1 to win 3-0 in Rome. Now, Manchester City plain sailing through to the quarter-finals with that 7-0 win. Last season they drew Liverpool, which arguably with their rock and roll football, all-out guns blazing, was not the perfect draw for them. Who do you think they will be looking to avoid this time around? Now, that's all for tonight after another exhilarating and entertaining night of football in the Champions League, the Football League as well. For all updates on the midweek, head over to our website at www.staffslive.co.uk and check us out on Twitter @stafflive. I've been Josh Kerr. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.